Hi, I'm Tara Davis. Welcome to this week's episode of This Full Life. Once again, it's come to the end of the week, and it's Thursday. I still didn't have a topic to record on, and so it's been really interesting last week and this week how the ebb and flow of the week has gone and how the topic popped up just like that. It's part of my allowing and learning to just trust the universe, right? I think that's part of one of our biggest lessons for all of us is that journey of allowing and learning to trust. So here's what I am going to chat about this week. It's actually what's been really up for me in my own relationships, in relationships with clients, is that we need to get really clear on our communication. And that can be communication in our relationships, with our significant other, with our romantic partner. It can be relationships at work. It can be relationships with friends. So that's up really big this week, is just the communication and how to really be clear on the way that we communicate. It's our responsibility to make sure that the other person we're talking with knows exactly what we mean. It's not up to them to decipher or figure it out or decode whatever it is that we're trying to say. It is 100% our responsibility to make sure that what comes out of our mouth is exactly what we want to come out of our mouth. Not kinda, not sorta, but 100% what we want to communicate to our partner, our significant other, our business partner. When we know what's coming out of our mouth and we can say that with clarity, then we are being responsible. We then can have clear communication with that other person. So here's what kind of random, not really good communication looks like, is when we just let things fall out of our mouth and then we expect the other person to pick up the pieces and decipher what it means, right? Like bad communication, actually it's neither bad nor good, but kind of not the good way to do it is to just let the vomit happen and let the words kind of spill on out, and then hope that our partner or the person that we're communicating gets what we mean. Hope that our significant other picks up the pieces and maybe knows what we're trying to say. So when we are in that space of hoping that somebody else gets what we're trying to say, that's not the place for us to be responsible and knowing what we want to say. That's actually part of codependency, when we assume that the other person's just going to get it or the other person's going to read our mind. So hoping that someone else reads our mind isn't the space that allows us to be empowered, in that space of empowerment of communication. So we want to learn how to be super duper clear on what we're saying, the message that we are trying to get across. That's our responsibility. I know a lot of times we'll say, oh, it's not really what I meant to say, or no, that's not what I mean. And we kind of get upset with the other person because we think that they're going to figure out what it means that we're saying. When in fact, or here's another one, we say what it is that we want to say and the other person says, I don't get it, or I don't know what you mean. And then we get defensive because they can't figure it out. In fact, it's our responsibility, even when we have to think clearly and take time and almost take it word for word before it comes out of our mouth. So here's a great example, and actually I'm going to give you a few techniques of how to be a really clear communicator. So when we allow those words to just fall out of our mouth and then we're trying to pull them back, I mean, it's going to happen, right? I mean, it happens to all of us. The thing is to be clear and concise the majority of the time. I know sometimes when we're angry or when we're mad and those words just start falling out of our mouth, it is what it is, right? And it just happens. However, when we have the wherewithal and the knowledge to know, okay, I really know how to do this. I really know how to say what I mean. We can back up. Even if it takes us a few minutes and we have to pause or we have to be very slow with our words so that we make sure we know what's coming out. So did you see how I kind of slowed down that riff of what was coming out of my mouth? Because I wanted to give you the example of what it looks like when maybe we don't know exactly what we want to say or how to be exactly concise with our meaning or our feelings. Then we get to slow the conversation down. We can actually even use the phrase, I don't have an answer. A lot of times we assume or we think or we come from a place that we have to have an answer. When in fact, we can say, I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer for that. Or I don't know that answer. That's a valid, legit response. We can actually use that when we truly don't have an answer. I know a lot of times when we're in partnership with our romantic partner, we expect them to have all the answers. They expect us to have all the answers. And so when we don't, it can cause frustration. It can cause anger, sadness. And so by releasing that desire, that need, what's the word I'm looking for? That feeling of responsibility that we have all the answers, we can actually say, I don't have an answer for you. I don't know that answer. I don't know. I don't know works because if you don't know, it's not your responsibility to figure it out for your partner. So that's a really good one. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. So that one can work all the time. Here are a couple other things. And so I'm going to pull up a document so that I can read these to you. And we can talk about what it looks like to take responsibility. So first of all, taking responsibility as well for our feelings and what comes out of our mouth. Actually, let's back up just a little bit and talk about taking responsibility for what comes out of our mouth, right? So we started out with that. By taking responsibility, or in order to take responsibility, we actually have to know what it is that we're feeling and what it is that we are truly thinking before we can express that part to our partner. So this is where we really get to full on take responsibility. So to effectively communicate and express what we want to express to our partner, we actually have to know what those feelings are, right? We have to know what it is that we're really feeling underneath that anger, that rage, that sadness, that pissed offedness. So by checking in and finding out where those feelings are coming from, what those feelings are, we are actually not only taking responsibility, but creating a container for the two of us, the two of you, to have effective communication, actually creating a safe zone. So let's talk about feelings. So taking responsibility for what we want to say, what we want our partner to know 100%, I think I've already said this, is always, always, always our responsibility. Like, we can't just hope that our partner gets it. It's not our partner's responsibility to figure it out, to kind of guess what we're trying to say, to kind of try to play charades and figure out what we're trying to say. It is always us that has to effectively express everything that we want them to know. So to start that, we have to know how to access and how to identify those feelings that are underneath. So most of us, again, know how to access the basic emotions of anger, of resentment, rage, happiness, joy, love. So those are the basic emotions, and there's more, but just that basic first line of emotions that we all know how to identify. And so once we name these, then we can look for what's underneath, because the anger, the madness, is just kind of the go guy for the in-between guy for really what is underneath. It's like the front man for all of the emotions that are ready and waiting to come up, to be seen, to be heard, to be identified, to be acknowledged. That's what's lying underneath. So let's just name off a couple of emotions. So we have abandonment, we have betrayal, we have fear, we have unworthiness, denial, resentment, bitterness, jealousy, embarrassment, vulnerability, isolation, defensiveness, nervousness, confusion, offended, regretful, remorseful, mournful. So these are just a couple that I pulled out. You can literally Google emotions, and you can find so many documents on hundreds of emotions that you can tap into, see what speaks to you, see what emotions really call to you, even if you don't know why. Those emotions are there to show us, hey, something needs to be checked out, needs to be healed, and this is how we identify it. So the next time when you're angry and you want to express your anger, stop and check in. And even if you have to have this list of emotions with you, that might be helpful. Or maybe you just have it on your phone and have a little document of like maybe the 6 or 10 emotions that really speak to you, so that you know how to call on these. So identifying these emotions is the very first step. Number 2, now that we have identified these feelings, we can effectively communicate these to our partner this way. I feel blank when blank. So for example, I feel betrayed when you pay attention to others more than me. That makes me feel really sad. I feel hurt when I see that you're paying attention to these other people and I'm right here next to you and you are ignoring me. The flip side of that would be finger pointing and saying, you're always paying attention to everyone else except me, and you're always doing this. And so do you see the total difference? The first example, we are totally taking responsibility of how we're feeling. And we are communicating and expressing that to our partner in a non-violent, non-threatening way. We're not finger pointing. We're not blaming. We're not judging. We are expressing our thoughts and our feelings from that place of vulnerability, of truly how we're feeling. And so you can let your partner know, hey, I want to try something new. And when you do this, make sure that you do this at a time when you're both open to receiving, right? You don't want to do this in the midst of a heated argument. You don't want to do this when you're both really angry, one of you is triggered. 9 times out of 10, this won't work. So you need to explore this first when you're both at a neutral zone. So I invite you to kind of role play when you're both in a neutral space. It might even be fun. It might even be funny. You can, play with it however you want to. That way, when it comes time that you really need to use this technique, you've already kind of got the basis for it and can use it. So I feel really hurt when you choose to do activities with other people rather than doing things with me. I feel really confused when you tell me blank because it doesn't make sense to me. I don't know what you're trying to say to me. Again, the flip side would be, you don't ever talk right. I don't even know what you're trying to say. I mean, do you totally see? One is accepting responsibility. The other one is finger pointing. And let me also be really clear. This does not mean I feel like you. That's not it. And it might take some practice. A lot of times when I do this with clients and with couples, it takes some practice to get into the habit. Because a lot of times we feel when we're so used to finger pointing and using our other partner as the scapegoat, we're used to, I feel like you or you. And so we're just so used to finger pointing and placing blame externally rather than being internal and taking that responsibility. And it might even feel awkward at first. Name that. Like, this is feeling really awkward. Like, this is kind of weird that we're even doing this. So name it. That is a feeling. I feel really awkward when we're doing this. I feel really weird that we're putting this into place. So name that feeling. That will actually help you move forward in this process. So keeping the I statement, keeping the statement in the form of I allows us to take responsibility for our actions. It allows us to take responsibility for our emotions and our feelings. Again, the opposite of finger pointing. Your feelings are yours. Our feelings are ours. They are not our partner's feelings. So back to the very beginning when we were kind of talking about assuming our partner should know what we're talking about or assuming our partner will pick up what we're trying to say, it's our responsibility. And so for us to express properly what we're thinking, what we're feeling from a position of neutrality, when we use that I statement, we have neutralized any defensiveness because we are taking responsibility. We're also coming from a vulnerable place of, I feel blank when blank. I feel so alone when this happens. I feel really let down. I actually feel really abandoned. And so by naming these feelings, we are opening up a bigger space, even bigger space, to dig down deep underneath what else is going on. So oftentimes when we're arguing or having a disagreement with our partner, it's so much easier to point the finger of blame than it is to accept responsibility for our actions. So this is the key. When we have taken that responsibility, it removes judgment and blame. We open up that vulnerable place and we remove so much heartache and pain out of that conversation that could potentially go south quickly. When we're trying to communicate with our partner in a tense situation, there's already tension and defensiveness up. And so to neutralize that space, to come from a space of neutrality and vulnerability, adds to the place that we're trying to get to. So really, ultimately, where we're trying to get is to a solution to whatever is amiss, whatever is going on, we're trying to get to the other side of that place, right? And so I know we would love for our partner to take responsibility so that we can shove it all on them and then we don't have to think about it, right? So really, that's not what is going on. Like, the only reason that we are triggered is because there's something within us that has been triggered. There is a feeling that has been triggered that maybe we've never identified with. Maybe there's a pattern there that whenever a particular situation happens, we feel this feeling. Maybe we've never looked at it. Maybe we've never had the opportunity or the space to think about, God, why do I always feel like this when this situation happens? It must be you. You must be doing it to me. It's not. It's actually a feeling that most likely comes from our childhood. And so when you start to feel these feelings that your partner has brought up within you, I invite you to, at some point, fairly close around the time frame that you've felt these feelings, that you've had this trigger from your partner, that your partner has pissed you off for whatever reason, they've made you mad because there's something underlying that hasn't been looked at and that hasn't been healed. So our partner is a great person to bring up these triggers. If we weren't mad, if we weren't triggered, there would be nothing to be healed. So our partner is a great mirror for us to do healing work. So when we take responsibility and we remove the judgment, we remove the blame, we actually kind of remove those layers of the onion to allow ourselves that space to look down deep. And we might have to take time, right? It might take time for us to uncover and see what's going on. It might take a couple of days. I mean, it might take some quiet space for us to uncover those feelings, those hurt feelings. And then once we've looked at them, we can start identifying, where is this coming from? When is the first time I felt this? When is the last time I felt this? So if we feel abandoned, let's look back at our childhood. When is it that we felt abandoned? When is it the last time that we felt abandoned? When is the first time that you can think of as a child that you felt abandoned? And I'm just using that specific feeling. So since our partner is our perfect mirror for bringing up all of those triggers that have been laying dormant, our partner really gets to be here and help us through our growth, our healing. So interestingly enough, believe it or not, our partner can be a great source of healing. Our partner can be an enormous source for our growth. Once I learned and tapped into the fact that my partner was my perfect coach and mentor for my own growth and healing, it kind of lessened the charge around all of my anger and angst and desire to point the fingers at him. So when we learn that everyone around us is here to be our teacher, we can also kind of let down our guard and come to the realization that, interesting, whatever is triggering me is something within me that is unhealed. And so that person is here unbeknownst to them, like they have no clue that they are really here to show you what's up and to be a mirror for you. They're just doing them. They're just being themselves. They're just doing exactly what they want to do. We have the gift and the knowledge now to understand and to realize that they're giving us a gift. As much as we might not want to acknowledge it, they're giving us the gift that we get to heal another part of ourselves. So There's a lot in here. I invite you to listen to this again because I've given you a lot of tools and a lot of information that maybe you've never considered. Maybe you've never thought to use these in your communication in the way that you communicate. Maybe you've never even considered your partner being a healer, right? Maybe you've never considered that your partner is here to be your biggest teacher. Yeah, I remember when I realized that, holy cow, my partner is the biggest teacher for me on the planet. I was really grateful. Now, I will say, and I will 100% admit, I'm not always grateful in the moment when I'm mad or when I'm upset and when I can't identify what it is that he's triggering. You know, my go-to is always, good God, man, why are you doing that? Like, you're just really making me mad. I can't even believe that you're doing that again. It's having the availability and the wherewithal to switch that and realize, okay, what is this triggering in me? Taking a step back from the situation is brilliant, right? If we can just remove ourselves from that situation that's so fully charged, then we can actually have the space to get grounded and look at what's going on. So when my husband and I first started really learning how to communicate, we would actually realize we had to take breaks a lot. So if we were in a heated argument and heated discussion that we were both stomping our feet, one of us had our feet firmly planted in the ground because we knew we were right. Finally, one of us would have to say, I need to take a break. Like, we need to take a break. And here's what happens when you are full in a conversation with someone that is heated, that is charged. By us saying, or the other person saying, look, we need to take 5 minutes. Oh, that just heats up the conversation more, right? So what you want to do is say it when you mean it. It's not open for discussion. You're not here to say, oh, do you want to take a little break? Maybe we should take a break. Or you're not here to say, we're taking a break, and then pause and wait for your partner's response. If you're going to say it, mean it, and follow through. Otherwise, it's pointless. There's nothing to it. You're just speaking hot air. So I really invite you and encourage you, when there is a heated and charged situation that neither one of you is getting anywhere, you're just finger pointing, you're blaming. That blame game can really run rampant when we don't want to look at our own shit, right? Like, we don't want to look at what's going on internally. It's so easy to use that go-to blame game. So I really invite you and encourage you to, hey, I'm taking a break. Not even we. You can just use the I. I need to take a break. I'm taking 5 minutes. I'm taking 30 minutes. Let's revisit this in 2 hours. I really encourage you, if it's, somewhere during the day and not at night, that you don't go to bed unless it's something that you both really just need to sleep on, because in my experience, that's all I think about when I'm sleeping. And so I don't get a good night's sleep, and then I'm tired the next day. So I invite you to say what you mean. Again, you're articulating exactly how you're feeling. I'm feeling really distressed right now. I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling whatever. I'm taking a break. Walk out of the room. Walk out of the house. Get in the car, drive away. I'll be back in 15 minutes. I'll be back in an hour. I just need space. I'll be back. When you leave the door open and allow space for your partner to argue, you might as well not have said it at all, because that partner will want to come back, right? Because a charged situation, let's face it, is charged. One of us wants to be right. We want the other one to be wrong. So I just encourage you to use that as well when you're trying to communicate effectively, trying to get your point across. Again, we're not trying to be right. We're just trying to make sure that we're heard, that we are expressing what we're feeling. So let's just do a quick recap. Our responsibility is to make sure that we are expressing, that we are articulating exactly what we mean. That is our responsibility. It is not ever at all the responsibility of our partner to figure that out. Our body language isn't for our partner to figure out. Our kind of half-assed expression of what we kind of mean to say isn't to be dumped on our partner, hoping that they will figure it out. It is always our responsibility to express our feelings, to express our thoughts, and create neutrality. I mean, let's face it, if we want to get anywhere in our relationship, one of us has to be willing to be that person to step up to the plate. And I can't tell you how many times I wanted to be in that victim space of, good God, man, I'm always the person who steps up to the plate. That was just me playing my victim role. Because really, I was the one who wanted to learn communication. I just didn't realize it at the time. And so just be with what's going on. Take it one step at a time. Take responsibility for your actions, for your communication. Take responsibility for what you want your partner to know. Take responsibility for what you want them to hear, what you want them to know about you, what you want them to know how you're feeling. When we really have these loving partnerships, our intention is to be in that space of love. We need to communicate that to our partner. We need to be able to express to our partner exactly how we want to be heard or seen. So you can use these, break it down in your relationship. I would love to hear how you figured out how to use these in other parts of your life, in other parts of your relationship. Yeah, I would love to hear how you put this all into play. Okay, until next week. I feel like this has been so full of information. There's a lot to process. So cheers. I'll see you next week.